going to move you over and then I will read the public hearing notice.
Yeah, let me just say I'm opening the August 16th, 2023 meeting of the Southborough Zoning Board of Appeals. This is through Zoom. Those wishing to watch or participate remotely can do so by accessing the meeting link at www.southboroughtown.com. So yeah, go ahead, Laura.
Sorry, I have barking dogs in the background.
It's okay. Okay.
Actually, so I will state this just as a moment of record. Michael Bartolini's father is my landlord. I have no connection to Michael Bartolini. I do not believe there's a conflict of interest here, as it is a separate request and not under my landlord. So I do not feel I have any conflict of interest on this.
Okay. Thank you for stating that. I think also in this case, it's, I mean, he is speaking on behalf of David Johnson. So the applicant is David Johnson. So I think that's sufficient. I don't see where there'd be a conflict there.
The Board of Appeals of the Town of Southborough will hold a public hearing via virtual Zoom meeting Wednesday, August 16th, 2023 at 7:00 p.m. with regard to the petition of Michael Bartolini on behalf of owner David Johnson, 9 Jericho Hill Road, Southborough, Mass, map 71, lot 3A. The petitioner is seeking a special permit to convert a single-family dwelling to a two-family dwelling. The property is located in the residential A district. Relief is requested under section 174-8.2B6 and section 174-9G.
All right, thank you. And who do we have somebody ready to come into the room to present, Laura?
Yeah, Mike is here.
Okay.
How you doing? Mike Bartolini, 9 McNeil Drive. I do have Mr. Johnson right here also. So we're seeking a two-family conversion for the property on 9 Jericho Hill Road. Laura, can I share my screen? Is that?
Yeah, give me 1
please.
second. I'm going to make you a co-host and you should be able to in 1 second. Did it work?
I don't know. How do you? Haven't done this in a while. Did that work?
Yep.
Something's happening.
Thinking about it.
Can you see that?
Not yet. It's there we go.
Here we see it.
Yep.
now.
Okay. So this is the lot over on 9 Jericho Hill Road. And so basically what we're doing here is we're putting a 28 by 20 addition onto the property. It meets all the criteria. The lot's been in existence for, the house has been in existence for well over 2 years. It meets the 15,000 square foot requirement. The alterations to the outside, it's fairly minimal. It's going to match the house completely. It's going to have the same red siding, the same basically look and feel to everything that Mr. Johnson currently has. The reason we're doing this now is there's a medical condition within the house and they need to prepare for wheelchair accessibility and single floor living. So it's really it. I mean, there isn't much else to it. We're actually taking away some pavement. It's within all the setbacks. He'll have his own utilities, so he's not sharing anything. We did get we went to the planning board and they did give us a unanimous favorable letter. Also have approval or a favorable letter from the Board of Health, which is also required. So that's really it. I don't know if you guys have any more questions to it or.
Yeah, those were the, the critical things as you noted, is the 15,000 square feet, approval from the planning board, approval from the Board of Health. So those are certainly the significant ones, but let's just see if anybody has any questions. Paul, want to start with you?
Sure, I guess. So, just a kind of confusion question. This is currently like one home, and then a second dwelling is being built to make it a multi. Is that, or is the
Correct. So
one
this-
home being
this-
converted?
This is a single family house right here, and this will be attached. So it will be conversion into a 2-family property. So it's going to go from a 3-bedroom house to a 2-bedroom house. The addition will be moved down to a 1-bedroom. We've done this a few times with you guys in the past. I know we've done it 4 times on Flag Road. I know another one that had an addition that was on Ladisquama Road. So yeah,
I remember the ones you did on Flag. I remember being on board with that. I don't know. It's just a little confused here that, and this again, this is more of a silly question to I guess my other board members. So that's, I mean, again, that's okay to do. That was, and I guess if the planning board already gave it its blessing, it's just for us to say that the variance is granted then. Is
Correct.
what we're getting at here.
That's the way it's supposed to work with converting a single family to 2 families.
Okay.
It does ultimately come to us, but the planning board has to approve it first, and as well as
Okay.
the Board of Health.
All right, I'm up to speed. I understand now. I'm good.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Thanks.
Jamie, do you have any questions?
My only question I think would be for Laura is, have we had any feedback from abutters, positive or negative?
I have not heard anything from any abutters.
I don't really have any other questions. This seems pretty straightforward to me.
Okay, thank you. Doris?
The only question I had is along Paul's line, this is new, just to correct me, this is new to the original application, which shows when I took a peek, and it's a very wooded area at the property, I said immediately, just peeking in, like, where's the addition going? You could see what the addition would be, but what you couldn't see, but I was like, well, that's a small house. They're not going up. They couldn't possibly be going in the basement. Maybe my only other question, and it seems to be answered in the plan, is that's a 3-car garage, almost equivalent to the size of the original home. Is that true? That's what, I don't know if that's to scale, if those houses appear to be scale.
it's to scale.
Yeah.
The garage is
But-
bigger than the house.
Yeah, the only other requirement was that there's no other apartments on I think that's in the code, no other apartments on
Correct.
the lot.
Yeah,
That is-
there's not.
Okay. It's the same thing as Paul said, but it seems straightforward to me, other than now that this diagram's here, I understand where things are going more clearly.
Yeah, I agree. This is very helpful. From one of the plot plan, I couldn't make a whole lot out, but the plan.
Yeah, exactly.
The plan for the addition is very clear. So, okay. Great. Thank you. Craig, any questions from you?
I guess my one question is, do you have any view of what the completed existing house plus extension would look like? I mean, the plans that were submitted is just of the extension. So I'd like to understand the context of both the existing house, which, albeit the connection is a deck, which totally get, that's valid, but the concept of 174.9G3 is that it's the minimal amount of exterior difference between what exists now. So I'm just trying to understand what the overall facade and look of the new configuration would be.
So I think the actual intent of that is to make it so it doesn't look like a 2-family. So essentially the door is going to be hidden on the side. So when you come up to the property,
I'm not sure if the intent is to make it not look like a 2-family. I have no issues with things looking like a 2-family. It's just the code itself is that it's the required minimum exterior alterations. So I know the connection via that shared deck is the connection, but I'm more worried about the overall look and feel of the facade to the exterior that makes it look like two separate houses, not just a duplex per se.
Okay, I don't have anything of them together outside of the plan that was given. It's to get a building permit, I'm not really required to show the entire finished product, so it wasn't something I was expecting to do, but
Well, you're asking for a special permit based on an overall look of it not exceeding the minimal required exterior alteration. So it takes
Right, so
into
the
account the
reason
fact
the-
that the existing exists.
correct.
Yeah,
So the
Craig,
reason we're here is because the first floor in the existing house cannot possibly accommodate a wheelchair.
right.
So it required us to come up with something a little more creative. So I personally don't think it's going to make it look like it's two existing homes. They are connected, and that's the requirement.
So let me ask you this: the issue is that the existing house doesn't have wheelchair access at the first floor and living spaces at the first floor.
Correct.
Yet the access to the new place requires you to go upstairs. Or is that a ramp?
So Mr. Johnson is going to be putting in his own ramp when he feels it's necessary to put it in. He did not want it now.
So I would say if the pretext of this is the necessity of mobility, then the ramp should be required now. That's my opinion. Other people can change their opinion on that. But if the idea is that this is to accommodate
Right. I mean, I think his
mobility
wife
issue
has
that
a
is
his wife has
pending
a
and imminent, then to approve this, since clearly there's ways to do this that minimizes the exterior alterations, that doesn't exist, that doesn't incorporate an existing deck and connection, then the ramp should be required now. That's my opinion. So
Michael, could I, because we were talking earlier about it's going to scale and it's in tandem with Greg saying, what is the square footage on the existing house? When I looked at that topography, Greg, I would see, I'm not an architect. Okay. I'm like, where are you going to put it? I kept saying to myself, where are you going to put it? I don't know if you could you tell me how big the existing house is, Michael? Because the new addition, 650 square feet about. I think I read that in the application.
He says it's about 1,900 square feet. The existing house.
And that's 2 floor.
That is 2 floors.
yeah. I'm not concerned with the size of the addition. I'm more concerned
Going to
with
the code,
the
right.
overall look of it, and if the premise is for future mobility needs, then the ramp should be a part of the approval. Is my 2 cents.
Okay.
I have a question, if that's okay.
That's fine.
I may be confused, but the connection between the two homes, or between the home and the addition, is that just a deck, or is that like a enclosed, right, connection somehow?
It's partially enclosed, but that is there's a platform, and then that's partially enclosed. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
I
I've
know
got
I know we've approved breezeways as an approved connection between units. We just did it at Main Street. I think 15 Main Street.
We did it on presidential too.
Yeah.
And on flag. I
Yeah,
believe.
is there any component where you could provide cover of that existing deck between the sunroom and the new addition to make it a breezeway as opposed to a just deck?
So you would like me to put a roof on it?
Yes.
I mean, it's possible to do, yes.
I think that's more
But what, are
in
you thinking that's
line with-
more in keeping with what we've done on other
Yeah,
and similar?
that's my thought. Yeah. I mean, in specific to 15 Main Street, you know, the fact that the breezeway between the garage and the apartment above and the main house was covered was part of our decision to think that that was legit.
Yeah. I do recall that. So that I agree with you on. I do have to say regarding putting the ramp in, I don't agree because I think the way the special permit requirements are written, and specifically to go to a 2-family, I think it's just saying you're making minimal alterations to the existing property. So I mean, to me, I think this meets that. I understand what they're saying in terms of adding the ramp, and I see where you're coming from, but it's just my opinion that I don't think that's something that holds it up.
Well, my sense is that if you eliminate that deck and provide an at-grade entrance to the from this plan to the right of the building, you can minimize the impact on the land by the existence of that deck and still provide an access. So we're trying to minimize the impact of the overall development in terms of a facade.
Mm-hmm.
And if they desire to use that deck as the entry point, and the component of why they're doing it is accessibility,
Yep.
then the ramp should be a component of the
Well,
accessibility
Hold
requirement.
on. You know, Greg, when I'm coming off the street here, that woods, you can't see that house. I mean, just mentioned, you cannot see
Yeah.
this house.
No,
Really.
that's fine too. I'm just saying the 174.9G3 is that it has to minimize the exterior change.
Alterations,
Right.
to the 1-family house and to any accessory.
And I'm
building.
perfectly happy to have that deck there and be the access. I don't want you to change the plans. But if the idea is that's the access point and eventually it will be a ramp because of mobility issues, do the ramp now. I don't think that's a huge cost difference. That's, you know, a few $100. So
Yeah, but yeah,
my
I agree.
thought. You
I
guys can
don't
change
see
your
this as-
ideas on it. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Mike, what are your thoughts on that, on the cover or the ramp?
I mean, to be honest with you, I feel like we fit the criteria of everything we've done. There's
Mhm.
precedent set before that we've done things like this before. So his wife has a progressive disease, and they want to utilize the stairs for as long as they can. And if it's necessary for him down the road to do that and put in the ramp, I think it's something he'll do. I just not sure why we have to make it a requirement.
Yeah.
In addition, in terms of the breezeway, I don't know how much that complicates wheelchair accessibility, but I mean, at the end of the day, he wants to get it done. So
Okay.
he has a very pressing need to do it.
Okay. I mean, I'm just speaking for myself. I'm less hung up on the ramp. I see a little bit more of the breezeway idea just in terms of consistency. I don't know how the other board members feel about those two things.
I feel the same way about the ramp as you, David. I'm not hung up on that, and I don't think that should be mandated, as we've approved very similar types of additions without a ramp. That wasn't the
Right.
reason someone needed it. So I don't
Correct.
think it's
I-
right to
Yeah,
hang the decision on that.
yeah, and I don't think there's anything in the bylaws that say anything about the use, so I don't think we should go there, it's my opinion. Paul?
I'm of the same opinion. I'm okay without a ramp, but I do feel it should be a breezeway connecting it.
Okay. Doris, how about you?
Well, I'm with Paul on, the breezeway would be consistent. We had presidential and there was quite a discussion about the sizing and the fact that the two buildings are together.
Right,
Not a little discussion, but quite an in-depth discussion on that, which is probably a more incremental cost. In regards to, I just am not thinking the way Greg's thinking. I think you need the handicap ramp, but I don't believe it'd be part of my decision to enforce putting a handicap ramp in as a condition,
all right,
and for differing reasons than Greg's.
yeah,
But the breezeway would bring consistency to all the other decisions that I know of and we've been involved in. And architecturally, it tends to look better.
tends to tie
That's-
things in a little bit better,
It ties
Right.
it together. That's
yeah,
mhm.
okay,
Cool.
all right. How's that sit with you, Craig?
Totally fine. I bring these things up as comments, not
Yeah,
have tos. So
okay. All right,
I guess one more question is, like, for Michael, are we okay for Mr. Johnson if it is a breezeway? If we are putting that as a condition?
Can you give me a minute?
sure.
you're welcome to mute yourself as you discuss.
Yep.
Laura, while they're discussing, is there anybody else who wants to comment on this application?
I don't see any hands, but if there's anybody in the attendees who wants to comment, use the raise hand function. No. A lot
Okay.
of people here for the next public hearing.
I imagine.
Hmm.
Okay,
Docker.
yes, indeed.
Nice children.
Yeah.
Whoever laptop that is, there's a little button to keep us from
Yeah, no,
seeing that. We're
it's-
seeing your entire laptop and just helping you out
Yeah.
here.
Mike, we're seeing all your emails there.
Okay, so
Just so you know.
clicker beware.
Always bring a picture.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Yeah.
I have nothing incriminating, so it's fine.
Mm,
So just, I wanted to show you what this is. So this is his house here. That's the garage.
Hold on. Your
It's not
description is
quite
lagging
flashing up.
on the
Sorry,
what shows up. Just so you know.
Okay,
can you see it?
Yep.
Yes.
yeah,
You can see the garage.
So
with
that's the
solar
garage
panels.
there. That's the house. That's in
Okay.
between. That's the front of the house there. Okay. Can you see that?
Side of the house with
Yes.
the gabled. Yep.
Okay, so it's like a French chateau style.
okay,
So it would connect to here. Okay.
Hold on.
Basically.
Yep.
This,
Okay. Now we're seeing where would it connect?
it would connect to this set of stairs here,
Oh, okay.
this deck, okay? His enclosed area is glass,
Okay,
which does make it slightly difficult to do. So essentially what would happen is you'd have that area would be in here. Some of this pavement would probably be gone. In terms of disturbance of the actual property, it wouldn't be much. And then to eventually one day put the
Okay.
ramp into this section wouldn't be that difficult because it gives you I've installed ADA ramps. They have it's going to be long.
Right.
So for them to do that, or even potentially, because the grade falls off this way, it would most likely have to come out this way and wrap up this way to the deck. Right now, if you do that, it leaves a lot of openness for the ability to install the ramp and put it in. Just makes it a little difficult to do that breezeway.
So, yeah, so just to try to understand this a little bit better. So really, you're coming straight out of that sunroom towards the addition you're proposing, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right. I was confused because you were showing sort of the side of the house and saying there was a connection there at the second level. I didn't understand that part.
No, it's connecting to that deck. Almost like the deck's going to be like a future. It's like a landing, essentially.
Yeah. Okay, so I understand the challenge. What we're saying is, if you put in a breezeway, you have to connect the roof to that sunroom, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
You know, Michael, seeing these pictures that you're showing right now and explaining that further, I can understand why it would be difficult from a logistic and an aesthetic point of view to do a breezeway. So, I mean, I'm speaking for myself here. I under these circumstances, I would actually be okay if it was not a breezeway. I understand in most other circumstances that's what is required to make it an addition and not a separate dwelling. But I know everything should stand on its own merits, basically. So I'm not worried about a precedent being set here to the contrary. So yeah, based on what you're showing, I'd be okay without it being a breezeway now.
Okay.
I
I see. Sorry, go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I agree with Paul, and I think a way to distinguish this from some of the other cases we've been talking about is that those homes are right on the street, and this one is really set back. It just offers a different glimpse of the home entirely, versus being on a road like Flag or Presidential, where they're right up against the street. So I think it's
if I can even take it one step further, I could see where adding a breezeway roof to this would increase the expense of doing it significantly based on what you're trying to get done and what the addition is. So even further for expense reasons, I'm okay with that too.
Yeah. Okay. Doris?
The more I look at the home, the more I can envision many discussions of where this was going to go on this property without, with keeping it somewhat connected to the house and understanding there's a disability involved here. You're really limited on this design on this. That's just by the surface. You can't go up, you can't go down, but you may be not medically necessary. I'm a little concerned, and it's not a stopping block for me. I think we're going to look like we have back to Greg's problem, two houses on one lot. Because Michael, is the design gonna? I couldn't exactly see it. Maybe you want to bring up the design of the final product, even though everything's not together. It's going to match the chalet style, or is it going to just be looking like a renovated, what I saw was more like a renovated mini house.
No, you're essentially getting like a. Sorry.
Your kids are lovely.
Thank
Very
you.
lovely. There's a button you can make that not happen, just if it ever bothered you. Everyone doesn't see the Disney trip.
That's the in-laws. So that's the side view. It's essentially like you're taking the house that it currently exists and you're seeing a side view. So it's gonna have the red cedar. You won't see the door. It's pretty minimal.
Yeah.
So- All right, so help me orient this, because I get that the facade with the two windows that you're showing,
Yeah, this is the
but
view
viewable from the driveway,
yes, this is the view from the driveway.
right? So
This is-
where's the bump out window and how does that interact with everything else?
So this is the rear view. This is the back of the house. The bump out window was specifically requested for when his wife could not walk. She wanted to look out the window.
So can you bring up the overall site plan with the colors again?
Sure. So the bump on the window will be, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it
Yeah,
will
I
be,
can.
Yeah.
it will be right there.
Okay. All right, cool.
So, like I said, the front's not gonna look, it's not gonna look like a separate house. It's almost gonna look like an attached garage, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
But sort of irrelevant because you're not going to see it from the road anyways.
Well, that-
You're
yeah,
definitely
but-
not gonna see it from the road unless the entire quarter acre
Unless you
was
do
break down,
some deforesting.
Yeah.
deforested. You-
Climate change,
when you're in
people.
the
Climate
driveway, you
change.
can't
Come
see
on.
it.
Microburst, yeah.
Well, that wouldn't be a micro.
No, that is very helpful in the sense of minimal intrusion of what exists. That's kind of the point that I was
Right.
trying to get to,
Yeah.
of the overall facade of both buildings, both existing and addition to make it a two-family.
Agreed. Okay, and any other concerns or questions from board members?
No,
I have no further questions.
And Laura, we have nobody that's raised their hand that wants to come on board and ask any questions?
Not that I'm seeing, but really quick, Mike, could you just send me this shaded plan and the photographs so that we have them for the record whenever you get a second?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
All right, I think after the questions have been answered, we're probably at a point where we could take a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make
move
a
to
motion to
close-
close the public hearing, yeah.
second,
Okay, motion to close the public meeting, portion of the meeting has been made and seconded. All in favor, respond with aye. Craig,
aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Doris,
Hi,
and Williams is aye. So the public part of the meeting is closed now. I don't think we need further discussion, I'm sensing. I think we've answered the concerns and we've discussed them in pretty good detail. So
Happy to make a motion to approve the application as presented.
I'll second that.
okay, motion to approve has been made and seconded. All in favor, respond with aye. Against, nay. Paul,
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Doris,
hi.
Williams, aye. That's 5-0. The special permit's approved. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. So I think, we're definitely past time, aren't we?
Oh,
Probably.
not too bad though.
No, not too
We're,
bad.
we started a few minutes late. We're 8:37, 7:37, 20 minutes 8.
what do we say? 7:15. Okay, so, okay, we good to go on to 264 Corderville?
Let's make it happen.
Okay,
Hey, good Paul.
I'm gonna move Mr. McAuliffe over, and then do you need me to read the public hearing notice?
Actually, no, it's a continuation. I don't think.
you're
we
right, it's
need a public
continuation.
Don't need to?
No.
Elizabeth, do you have a different stance on that? But I don't think so.
Sorry, what was the?
Do we
on-
need to reread the public hearing since it's continuation?
No,
Perfect.
John, you should be moved over.
Right.
Okay, good evening. If you could just please identify yourself first.
Yeah, good evening. John McAuliffe, appearing on behalf of PH Management and the property owner of 264 Corderville Road,
Right,
the applicant.
okay. And what, do you have anything to present or discuss this evening? Or?
Yes, this continued hearing. I have worked actually with Peter Bemis as the site engineer, and I'm wondering, Laura, if he is on there, could you promote him up, if you would? Mr. Bemis drew the original plan back in 2015 and attended the hearing where that prior site plan was approved. After that, after the last hearing, I was able to connect with him, and he had to be retained, of course, by the property owner for this matter. And I had the discussion with him. I filled him in on, summary of the last hearing and some of the notes I had and the concerns that were raised and what we needed to do as far as revising site plan and traffic management. And then some other comments actually came in on Monday. And so before I wanted to upload the site plan, then I talked to Peter and he made some further revisions and it was uploaded today. I don't know if the members of the board had a chance to see it with a one-page traffic plan. But that's where we are. That's what we have. And Mr. Bemis is joining us
Okay.
for this hearing.
Yeah, and again, if you could just identify yourself, sir.
Sure, it's Peter Bemis, Engineering and Design Consultants, and if I either share screen or Laura, if you don't mind, I realize the board probably didn't get a chance to view the site plan, but we got brought in on this, a little bit later here, but we know the history of the site, and I think we've come forward with a better plan than where you folks had started with this, and I think we can get to a better place when we're done as well. So either I share, or if Laura, if you just bring it up, I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Yep, I can bring it up. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. So 264 Porterville, the way this site plan is set up, to the right is north. Excuse me, to the left is north, to the right is south. And what I thought was important was controlling traffic with the site. So the site plan, I believe you saw this at your last meeting, which was our base plan that we did in 2015. But the one thing that we didn't introduce back in 2015 was to have a traffic management plan. There's a successful business there, so I think it's important to have a way of managing traffic. And we proposed a one-way traffic flow coming off of Corderville Road. The one thing with this intersection at Woodland Road at Corderville is that some folks try to take a shortcut if there's some stacking that's happening there, and they'll cut through the parking lot. So by making it a do not enter from Woodland Road, and there's no reason for any traffic to enter our site from Woodland Road, we can control that. If you want to come to the site, you come down Woodland Road to the intersection like everyone else who travels Woodland Road, and you'll take a right and you can enter the site. So by setting up a do not enter at the Woodland Road side of it and having a one-way entrance off of the Corderville Road side on our northern entrance, we can better manage traffic. What we did is designate 13 parking spaces in that northern part of the parking lot as those designated for the sale of automobiles. That did then afford 3 parking spaces for customers who would also be able to have that end of the site. And then we designated 3 parking spaces on the south end of the site for for employees. So the distribution of the parking area that you saw at the last meeting was 19 spaces. There's still 19 spaces, but now we've designated them in a more manageable pattern. On the right half of the sheet, and that's where all of the images go for me, so you may not be able to see that right now unless Laura pans, but we have a table for the parking, and we have the time and operation for the business also located there. I want to say it was 9 to 6 Monday through Friday. It was 10 to 4 on Saturdays, and then Sundays only by appointment. And then we also designated the vehicle delivery schedule would only be during the normal Monday through Friday business hours. The other aspect of the project that we defined, that wasn't defined again previously, was a traffic management plan. That is a separate exhibit that we could either look at or I can just describe to you. And on it, it talks about the site vehicle movements, the one-way vehicle movement from Corderville Road, passing through to Woodland Road as an exit only, and then a do not enter. And then vehicles located on the southern part of the site would be able to exit and enter on Corderville Road. And then the more important controlling factor here was site vehicle delivery movements, because I believe that was also a discussion point. So any vehicles that are going to bring, any carriers that are going to bring vehicles to our site from the north, those deliveries would enter the site from north to south, so be heading in a southern direction. They would process in the front of the parking lot that we had designated, and they would leave the site going to the south. They would then have to travel east or west if they wanted to get back to Route 9. They could continue south if they wanted to on Route 85. But if they wanted to go north, they would have to go east or west at Southville Road. Just like all other trucks having the ability to turn conveniently. And then any deliveries from the south, they also would be already heading in a northbound direction. So they would enter the site, be able to offload their vehicles, but they too would not be able to go back south. They would have to go north. So what we're trying to do is eliminate any turning movements from delivery vehicles in front of the facility on Corderville Road. We also put in a comment here that delivery vehicles are not supposed to impede travel on the road. So obviously if they're entering the site and there's vehicles coming in the opposite direction, you have to wait for your moment to come in just like you would on any site. But once you're in the site, that's it. You're off the road. You don't block travel any longer. And the same would go for the vehicles that have to subordinate. They would allow the vehicle to enter the site, but then they'd be able to travel on. And this traffic management plan would be posted on their website. It would be posted at their window at the facility. It would be given to every driver when they come to the site, so that there'd be no mistakes and no confusion going forward. So the site plan provides a mechanism for the traffic management plan. It defines where the parking spaces are, and it puts forward the landscaping program also that was contemplated in 2015. Some of that work was completed. Some of the plant material did not survive. It's been 8 years and probably wasn't maintained, or whatever the case may be. This would all be a new planting and made more robust. And you've got a user group that's there now on a daily basis, and they would certainly be able to maintain it and take care of it. Thank you for the opportunity to present that, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Let's start with Paul. Paul, do you have questions?
To be honest, I don't have a lot of questions, but I got a couple comments. I sort of like this updated plan with the traffic flow kind of implemented in it. Looks like some screening there, as Peter mentioned. From what I gather logistically, that should help and it should work. And I think listening to what some of the butter concerns were, that might help mitigate some of the issues or some of the concerns that have been going on. So I think it looks pretty good.
Right. Jamie? Thank you.
I guess I just have a question. When you talked about coming down Woodland Road and people now, because it's one way, would have to go onto Corderville, how is that signage just where it says do not enter on the pavement there? Because I'm just thinking, if I wasn't familiar with that area and I saw, oh, there's the cars with the sale signs on them. I mean, how clear is it going to be that that's one way? I guess is my question.
We absolutely can put signage in.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought this all the way through. I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't have a lot of time to put it together, so that could certainly be a condition. We could provide you with that detailed signage. But a typical do not enter sign is just like a stop sign. It has a more cautionary image to it, so we would probably just go with the standard octagon do not enter signs.
If I may, I discussed it with, excuse me, the operator there, and we would have a sign that posted so for eye level visibility, and also do something on the pavement on the bottom, some kind of marking that would know, like a do not enter. Possibly you could have these removable speed bumps, like plastic, and you could put it there. So just to avoid people, whipping in there. That's what we want to avoid, and not having anybody having to be pull in or just create the confusion on Woodland Road that we heard last meeting.
Good.
Thank you.
I think that's all I have for right now.
Okay. All right. Doris?
You're on mute.
Laura, excuse me, I realized I muted myself. Laura, would you mind bringing up the site plan again, the revised site plan? And Peter, while she's doing that, thank you for bringing this to the meeting. It seemed like a lot of time for us. We have a couple of months, but I know it takes time to coordinate you, get it in your schedule, and to produce it. So thank you on that. So on the site plan, when the vehicles come in, I went back to the site, and have we removed the old gas pumps in this plan? Because that really is in the way, Peter. I don't see them here.
They are there. The island is there. The pumps have been removed. They've been
Oh,
there.
I know the pumps are out, but the island is in the middle of everything, in my mind. Maybe I'm
Sure.
too simplistic.
I'm not sure what the final disposition of that is, but I certainly don't see the need for it any longer, and it is a bit of a burden. So I certainly don't think that's a problem to remove it, frankly. I think it's probably a good idea.
It frees up the middle of, let's say, 15-20 feet of space for
Sure.
ramping in. So no temptation to sit on 85, Route 85 on the wrong side of the street going south, because they're on the wrong side of the street as they're coming, if they're coming north.
Right.
But it seems idle. I don't know if it's an environmental issue. If someone can comment that those now can be safely taken out. Personally, I'd like to see them taken out. I think it would be a good addition.
It would make it easier, traffic-wise, I would say.
Right,
Yeah.
traffic-wise.
No, I see that's no problem, and I don't believe there'd be any environmental issue with that. It's just the island is there, and we can remove it. So
yeah, I don't think there would be. I mean, I would imagine they've already dealt with the tanks, right? That's just
all capped.
Thank Thank
Yeah,
you, John.
let's just we'll make that a condition as well. I think it's a good one. So absolutely.
Do
Okay.
I have other questions? Not really. Maybe I can't see it, what the width of the entrance is from Woodland. It looks far narrower and less tempting for a truck to come in,
Right.
with the landscape or, additions. So I'm very satisfied with that. I don't have further questions. Mine was the island freeing up some obvious space. Because of
That's a
the
good point.
level of complaints we get, we've got quite a few. They're not complaints necessarily, they're feedback. We've been getting a lot of feedback, as much as we can do to alleviate what's happening on Route 85.
Right.
Okay. Craig,
I got a lot of questions.
not surprised.
Yeah. In the last meeting, we talked about fencing along Woodland Road. I'm not seeing that addressed anywhere in terms of, at least from the building edge that almost abuts the road back to the northern property line to obstruct the view of cars and activity from the neighbors. I'm not seeing any addressing of that.
I have to say, I'm sorry for that, Craig. I didn't have all the details. I got some notes and I didn't get to watch the video. So I have no problem introducing some fencing here. I wouldn't want to make it so that it was an obstruction to a departing vehicle.
Nope,
So-
totally get that. I'm talking about the corner of the building as it exists now. So the rest of the landscaping as you come towards Corderville is still open and clear. I'm talking more about that from the corner of the building that almost abuts Woodland Road back to the northern edge of the property to really obstruct any view from the neighbors.
If I may, am I on? Am I muted?
Yeah, you're on.
I think there was a couple issues with that. One was the snow and the removal with the fence, and we thought that the high hedges, narrow, like a pine, would maybe look better. Maybe you could do a lower fence from that portion of the building where you see the snow removal and the sign down towards the intersection with Corderville and Woodland.
Yeah, I'm not worried about from the edge of the building that almost touches Woodland to the corner. I
Right.
realize that's a visibility thing. Totally cool with that. I'm more concerned with that to the north.
So the
So-
first tree that, so John, just a moment, if you would. So the first tree right there, Craig, so
Yep.
you're thinking that it'd be more valuable to have a fence screen going back to the north, up through because at some point I'd have to stop at that small island that we have
Yep.
there because, again,
Well,
visibility.
that's another question is why do we necessarily need any exit onto Woodland Road?
Oh, you have to.
I think
Because of,
emergency vehicles, I thought we would keep it open because if there was a fire apparatus and it needed to come through, I thought we'd keep it open so there would be a pass through. They could go
I'm thinking
opposite
that
the one way.
the access to the existing building is within a reasonable amount of space for an emergency vehicle. That there isn't necessarily a need that access point onto Woodland is not discounted or obliviated by turning from Corderville onto Woodland. There's access to the back of the building from Woodland. There's access to the front of the building off of Corderville and the rest of the parking. I'm not seeing that as a fire need to the building itself.
So.
And I don't see
if-
the
if-
fire
if-
department really having an issue of 20 extra feet of turning around.
So if I could, I'd like, Craig, sorry, I'd like to just interject for a minute here. I was happy to see that there's a site plan here. I think ultimately this has to go to the planning board. I'm not saying it's not valid for us to question what's going on here. And my understanding from Laura is because this was just recently posted, I don't think the planning board has seen it. Where they need to do the site review. The reason I bring that up is I don't know that we want to thrash, I don't know how deeply we want to go into the details here, if it still has to go before the planning board.
So here's my sense is there's the limited space here on the site,
Yeah,
and they're asking for a certain number of spaces to be allocated towards for sale vehicles. And while they don't say it, they're asking for a limited number of spaces to be available for quote unquote sold vehicles.
yeah,
And the circulation of the site impacts, in my opinion, what's the appropriate amount of both of those.
agreed.
And while the planning board will have ultimate say on what that looks like, I think it's up for us, since they're asking for a variance on the limit of the use, to take into account the fact that, yeah, that may be totally blocked and those spaces might not be available and everything else.
Right.
I would, I don't know.
That's my opinion. Again,
I just see
we
a
can
public
discuss
safety issue.
that
I
a
just,
long way.
I look at
Yeah.
that and even getting into the limitation of what's for sale and what's not for sale when you have a, authorized or available number of parking
Yeah.
spots. I think we're splitting hairs, and I think, you get into a restraint of trade when you get talking about, oh, you can sell so many cars, but you can park that many, and you're getting into that detail. I think it's what can safely fit there.
I
That's
disagree. I think the amount of spaces you can adequately park is absolutely the limitation on what you can trade. And another question of mine is, how do you indicate sold versus for sale? Because I think that's
let me
a
ask you,
big
what
question
does
that
that
the
matter?
residents have been, the
But
neighbors
what
have been
does that matter?
indicating. Excuse me. I think that is a big question that the neighbors have been questioning, because routinely there have been more than 8 cars on the lot that appear to be for sale.
Well,
I know in the past hearing that the operators have said not all of them are for sale. Some of them have been quote unquote sold.
They're
So
in
how do you
transition.
designate sold versus for sale? And limiting parking spaces for sale or to be sold or whatever, I think that is a significant question. And part of that is, how do you designate and what spaces are available for which?
but isn't it just the number of cars that should be on the lot that's the enforcement? If it says 19, you shouldn't have 19.
No, it's
more than
not.
that.
It's not.
Why
Because
not?
you're saying there's 3 spaces for employee parking. There's
Right.
probably no more than 2 employees at a time. There's a
Well, that's
many
arbitrary.
parked in
right
front of
there.
the office every day that I go by it to the train station. That's not an employee parking space, but they're parked there anyway. So no, I disagree.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
if that's the
my
reason,
opinion.
okay.
May I?
I don't think we've opened it up to
No,
comment yet.
no, Craig, I'd like you to continue if you said you had more questions.
Yeah, I mean, at the last hearing, we talked to residents about fencing along Woodland, which most of them agreed would be beneficial, and I'm not seeing any of that on the existing plan.
Okay, yeah, that was noted.
You're mentioning in your plan and your traffic demand management, which, Peter, I don't mean to call you out, but are you a licensed traffic engineer?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, so we would
it
probably
didn't
need a
apply to
licensed
me.
traffic engineer to say this is the plan.
Well, no,
But-
but Craig, with all due respect, all I was trying to do was take I know the site. We've been involved with the site, and we developed a traffic management plan that had some restrictions in it and activities. I wasn't
Right.
trying to present this as being a traffic engineered plan.
Right.
If you
So-
felt as though one was needed, we can certainly get a traffic engineer involved. I didn't
No,
get that.
I'm just saying
sense
it was delivered as if you were a traffic engineer, and that's not the case.
No, sir, no.
I mean, the vehicle process and delivery zone with that existing gas station area is not seemingly realistic, so that would need to be modified, in my opinion.
Well, we agree, I agree, the island should come out.
Exactly,
I know it's been, the pumps are gone, but I think there's still a bit of an impediment with the island.
right.
I agree with
Totally agree with that. Like the vehicle space between the existing concrete island and the building for the type of vehicles that are delivering cars and getting them off is insufficient. You
Correct.
need that entire space in order to make that realistic. I mean, I think from my opinion, deliveries from the north down Corderville into the site is totally unrealistic. I think you need an absolutely demonstrated plan from the operators that vehicles only enter from the south, where they're entering from the south and exiting to the north. There is no other option. Any vehicle, or if there's multiple deliveries at the same time, there's no idling on Woodland Road or any other adjacent road for those vehicles. And based on the number of parking spaces for employees and show people, I think my opinion is 10 vehicles for sale, 3 spaces for in-process, quote unquote, sold vehicles is appropriate. That's my opinion.
Seems reasonable.
Okay.
I think there has to be absolute, and this is another thing. There's been a plan submitted where the landscaping and overall design of the site wasn't followed through on. Any change in the license, and again, I know there's questions about license. I think we dealt with the fact that what exists. However, it was designated, fine, but any change is going to have to be required upon these changes to the site being completed, not contemplated.
I think that's fully understood. You know, again, I was disappointed that what we put forward in 2015 didn't get completed. So.
All right, that's my 2 cents. Discuss.
Okay. All right.
I have a comment based on what Craig said. I actually noticed it when I got off, but can we go back to the hours that the deliveries were going to be allowed? Because I also think there's some concern there. That road, Corderville, right? That's where all the buses go down to get the kids to all the schools, Finn and others as well. So I don't know if we want to discuss sort of limitation on, it says business hours, right?
Well, I mean, it's Jamie, I'll pile on. It's school hours, but I also travel that road to get to the train station.
Right.
Tuesday through Thursday at about 7 a.m.
Right. Exactly.
And to be fair, I've never seen a delivery as I'm trying to get to the train station. It's not that is a consistent issue. I've never seen it as an issue. But if we want to designate hours of delivery and whatnot, that probably would be appropriate.
Yeah, I would agree.
We did say it would be the normal Monday through Friday business hours, so it was 9 to 6. So I don't think it would be good to be doing it before 9. So I think that we'd stick with that for sure.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I think 9 I'm okay with. I think it's the 6, right? Because at 4, 5, and 6, there are so many people traveling that
I
route.
leave Boston at 5:05 p.m. and I don't get into Southborough Station until like 6:05, 6:10.
But it's not everyone coming from a train from Boston.
True.
People are coming from everywhere.
Right.
Just saying that might be the most congestion point.
Okay. I had one question, Peter, on the parking for customers. It looks to me when I count them that one of them is handicapped. Am I not reading this correctly?
It is just, in other words, the patron, we wanted it available for the patrons that come to the site.
Okay.
And so, and anything after a certain number of parking spaces, you need to have one handicap anyways. So it would just be available to the public. So it's really two, you know, this isn't a high volume dealership here. So having two vehicles is more than enough, but there would be one available for handicap patrons.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree that I think the overflow of patrons goes into the employee parking because I don't think I've ever seen more than one employee car there in all my trips to the station.
Okay. All right. What did I don't know if Mr. McAuliffe or Peter or the owners wanted to respond to any of the questions here at this point?
I just, on the fence, I wanted to understand, so from Craig, for that fence, and I want to try to address your concerns. So I think we could introduce a fence. I was trying to describe not the fire service to this building, emergency service to this building. I was thinking more in terms of having another passage point other than the intersection of Woodland Road and Corderville for emergency vehicles. That's where I was going. I happen to have the bad fortune of coming down Woodland Road, and someone went right through Woodbury and hit someone on Woodland Road and shut the road down. And there was no ability for the police to cordon off the people coming from the south. So it was utter chaos with people turning in people's driveways for a while until they were able to get an officer down to Corderville at Woodland.
That was last week, right?
So Doris, you recall that? Yes, I was in.
Yeah, that was last week,
My preference.
I would like the second egress managed because I was in that, by the way.
So maybe a fence that could, like a gate there where for the most part it's closed. There is no, for the purposes of the business there, ingress and egress off of Woodland. However, if an emergency vehicle needed to go through there because of said thing, fine. I mean, I just don't see any need for it. Like, we're talking an extra 30 feet for an emergency vehicle, assuming they can have access.
Well, actually,
so, I know from the first meeting we've had on this, the residents were, receptive to a fence there to shield the activity of the cars for sale, the activity going on there. So I honestly, from that southeast corner of the building on the 2-bay garage area, which is almost touching Woodland Road, from there to the northern edge of the property, I think a fence with a gate, if necessary, by all means, consult the fire department and emergency teams, would be appropriate.
Okay, so again, I'm going to go back to my original thoughts on this, and that is, I thought the suggestion you made last meeting for a site plan was definitely a good one, and I am happy to see what Mr. Bingus has brought forward. But my feelings on the hearing and this particular application is, I think it has to be continued until we have some input from the planning board. The planning board is the body that is supposed to do site review. I think all the questions and the comments we have here are 100% valid. My opinion on this particular application is, like, there was enough feedback that we got in the last meeting, and we've since heard further concerns with deliveries not being made properly, that the site plan review to me is critical. And I don't think we should really, consider taking action on it until we get something from the planning board. That's my opinion on it. I would also, and just to add to it, to hear additionally from the neighbors that and have video provided of deliveries, not following the rules, does not help the case of the owners. Right? If they want to be good neighbors, and these are the complaints about deliveries, the last thing you want to be doing is continuing to violate those agreed upon rules. So,
Dave,
may I just comment on that, because I noticed the videos were within the few weeks after the hearing, and we had a discussion, and it took a while to notify all the drivers to have them understand to come in what the rules were to get everybody to enter and exit from Corderville. And there's been no backing up, as I understand it, at least for the last few weeks, as we developed a site plan. So
Okay.
there's been an attempt in process. It didn't happen overnight. Like I think it was the June 30th, 2 days afterwards, that there was a video capturing the backing
Yes,
up. So
you're right about
that's
that.
what we had that. So that's going to be in place. I think that's very, very important. One of the most important critical safety things. So I just wanted to point out that it's kind of right afterwards, and it took a while to implement and educate the drivers. That's what's going on.
That's a fair comment. I would also like to understand from the operators how they will clearly designate for sale versus quote unquote sold, meaning in process cars. I mean, I think part of the confusion that people that go by the site have now is there's cars for sale and there's cars that are pending. And how do you differentiate between the two? Because I go by the site, like I said, Tuesday through Thursday every week. I can't tell. I guess at it, I give the benefit of the doubt, but I really don't know the difference. And I think there has to be a stated and designated concept of a car that's for sale and a car that is pending or sold.
I can say, and then I can let them respond, but we had talked about it, and the cars for sale are usually lined up against the back of the fence.
Where they are on the site isn't enough. That I will tell you.
Well, we didn't really want these big signs and kind of flashy banners for sale. I think it denigrates the neighborhood. So
how about sold?
You could
I
do
think
that.
sold does not denigrate the neighborhood, is my guess.
Craig,
So it's clear.
Yeah.
Craig, if I may, I used to own a car dealership. You have window stickers that you can put on sold. You can have window stickers that say for sale or the year of the car or whatever. So it doesn't, it's not flashy to the neighborhood. It's not difficult to do. It doesn't.
No, and that's the thing is
cars. It's an oval sticker that you slap on the windshield that says sold. It's very easy.
right. It doesn't have to be flamboyant. It doesn't have to be big thing. But if someone driving by can just notice it, it avoids any of the confusion that I think a lot of has been occurring in the
if you're on the side, we'll delineate what is
this many cars on the lot that seem to be for sale, when I know from the previous testimony of the operators, not all of them are actually for sale anymore.
Right. Okay.
So
do they have a
just understanding that what will be the designator so that the neighbors can understand this is the designation of for sale. This is the designation of no longer quote unquote for sale, but pending or sold. Just so it's clear to everybody.
May I?
Yes.
Okay. So if you mentioned, we do have the 8 vehicles lined up against the fence. They all have stickers. They all have on the rear view window the sign that gives them the vehicle information and the price. So it's stating that those are sold. The vehicles that have been sold, Craig, you can stop by any time and, view the vehicles from a little bit closer on. On the rear view mirror, there's a yellow sign about this big that says sold, and on the bottom it says pending RMV. Those are a very clear sign inside the rear view, as well as a yellow sticker on windshield stating this vehicle is not for sale.
Oh, so you do
so being
put
clear
one
about that.
Sorry, if I could, I want to clarify. So that a yellow sticker goes on the outside of the vehicle as well. Okay.
There's a yellow sticker that is probably 3x4 or 3x3 that's stating this vehicle is not for sale. And then on the rear view window, there is a sign that says sold and pending RMV. Those are on all our vehicles that are for sale.
And on the ones that are for sale that haven't been sold, is there also something hanging from the rear view mirror?
There is. The price.
So my point is, it's hard to designate driving by at 25 miles per hour, a sign hanging from the rearview mirror on a for sale car versus a sold car.
There's two different, the sold is yellow and the for sale is white. And I'm guessing if somebody's stopping in to view which vehicles are for sale and which ones are sold, they will be on foot and viewing into the vehicle. They're not.
Yeah, totally get that on foot, but all of your neighbors most likely aren't coming to you on foot. They're driving by, like I'm driving by, and yellow versus white in a rearview mirror placard really isn't descriptive.
Well, that's
So I'm asking if there's another way you can be clearly designate it, not for my purposes, because quite honestly, I could care less, but just to make it clear to everybody else, you are abiding by your permit.
absolutely. We
So
can. We
perfect.
can.
Love to hear that you can.
Um,
And we'd love to hear how you will handle it.
my only question is, again, if a neighbor is on a car, if a neighbor's across the street, they're speculating which vehicles are for sale or not. When they
Right.
can stop by a public thing and see which vehicles are sold and which are not. We shouldn't be speculating from across the street or 25 miles an hour. Signing,
Actually, that is exactly how everyone will speculate it. Just saying. No,
But-
not
but-
that it's fair, but that's how everyone's going to speculate it.
But that
So
you
just-
shouldn't be giving that much weight. I'm sorry, but that's
Yeah,
running by.
you know
and
what?
doing
But
enforcement, drive-by
that's how
enforcement.
that's how everyone's going to talk about it. So if there's not a clear
Well-
designation that is obvious from the street beyond a yellow versus white, and who knows what yellow versus white mean,
But
then it should be clear from the
But-
street.
Getting into signage.
That's my point. That's my point.
aren't they saying they're putting a yellow sign outside the car that indicates it's sold?
Has everyone in the town of Southborough been educated on the fact that a yellow sign from the rearview mirror means sold or in process, and a white
But I
sign
mean,
means
I-
it's for
But
sale?
I think the goal is to clearly indicate, distinguish between the two of them, and I think that's what they're
I
offering.
get that you need to clearly distinguish between the two, yes. But how is anyone going to know what that means?
the yellow.
So, yeah,
How is
One-
anyone going to
one
know that?
second.
I mean, seriously. I'm
But-
totally in favor of giving you guys more cars. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. But work with us here.
Yeah.
Make it freaking obvious that a car is for sale or in process to the flat out naked eye dumbest person in the freaking town. I mean, no offense to anybody else, but make it freaking obvious. No one will have a question if it's freaking obvious.
let me consult with the client and come up with
Please.
something.
Let's calm down for a minute here, all right?
Yeah, I'm just
Take,
I'm
just.
It's good.
trying to make it
Well,
easy.
I'm asking that we like take a breath here. We're getting really worked up about how big the sign should be. I still think again, I'm gonna say we've got a big step to go through, and that is the site plan review. What we say here is 100% valid, but I feel like we're kind of going down a rabbit hole a little bit. So are you gonna talk? I'm sorry, Mr. McCall, did you want to consult with your clients for a minute?
No, I just think for that we definitely would come up with something that would, delineate what's for sale, what's not for sale, whether it's a certain area that's in the parking lot. I'd like to talk through it with them, especially if we're going to a site plan. But I just want to make sure that this is even enforcement with all the other dealers. I don't know if that has to, any other car dealer in town, that's the same standard that we're being judged by. Because I think that, we could put up flashy signs. We didn't want to. We could certainly work with you to make that delineated. If that's something that needs to be done, then we'll do it. I don't think it's a real big deal, but we can mark it. We don't want it flashy. So I just like to, not off the top, like decide we're going to do something without really consulting it and looking at it. I want to do it right.
Right. Okay.
David, I'd really like to, I can't agree with you more. And part of this is that the plan came in just today. We've given some feedback. It never went to planning board, but in that same breath, to be much less heated about it, You know, we are receiving and continuing to receive, and I know we have participants on tonight, a whole variety of different complaints, and a lot of it is this visibility sold or not sold. And I have great opinions on how you would differentiate that, even if you had the largest sign. But something more prepared, and we need to keep in mind that it has to be enforceable. I'm kind of listening to what John's saying. So many details, you know, in the resources the town has, in the zoning officer, you know, reasonable,
Right.
because you place too many, you know, and that's just a general opinion. It's not saying, well, I'm giving them more licenses or less licenses. It's just getting too down this rabbit hole of many. I think we can solve a good 89% of it with a solid site plan, maybe the revision on
Correct.
fencing, you know, readdressing. I am a bit in favor of the two exits. I mean, that's really got to go to planning, and just the most amount of patience we can get out of the neighbors, because part and parcel to that is that enough attention wasn't paid to this. So we're paying the attention to it. And so I'm with David, and I'm listening to Craig. And as prepared as you can be. If you can't make it next month, we make it the month after.
Correct. Right.
Not a day before or today. So that's part of the problem tonight, is maybe just have continued it in general. So to get in front of planning.
Right.
Hey,
Right.
Dave, may I ask a question here?
Yes, Paul.
Because I've kind of lost sight and track of what is the exact task that is in front of us to be considering and deciding upon. Because I know, like, I understand, like, and Craig, I understand what you're saying, and I actually like some of the things, you know, that, as you said it, that makes some sense to me, especially the, you know, keeping the ingress and egress, you know, contained to Cordville Road. But what exactly is, like, what are we, I thought we were supposed to be kind of reconfirming what was previously allowed, or modifying what was.
Yeah, the history was that, you know, the selectmen approved them for the sale of more cars, and, you know, per the bylaws, you know, the ZBA never approved them for more than the sale of 2. So they wanted to increase that number, and that's what brought them, you know, back to the ZBA. And
right. So are we? So site plan aside. So what is being, I guess, presented to us is the fact that they would like to have the ability to sell 8 cars. Am I understanding that correctly?
No,
I
actually,
believe-
I think the
was 13.
request is 14
13.
cars.
For sale.
There's 13 now.
From a
There's 13, yeah.
select board approval that they have 8 cars. And I think in the last meeting, we all agreed that the 8 cars discussion is kind of the horses out of the barn. It's 8 cars, whether it was approved properly or not.
Okay.
And they go from 8 to
What?
14.
Well,
So this plan here, this site plan here that we're being shown here this evening, that site plan shows 8 cars, the possibility for 8 cars for sale.
Shows 13.
It shows,
Well,
it shows they
13
could
cars
have a
total.
total of 13, including
Right.
what the cars that would be in transition.
So if I'm not like trying to jump ahead or simplify things here, but and I do agree that there's some further considerations for the site plan, but that's not necessarily our job or task. That would certainly be a planning board discussion. But I think what we're supposed to be doing is saying, yes, we're as a ZBA approving, you know, 8 cars for sale, and I guess 13 cars total.
Right.
Is that like, am
I think you're right about that. I'm telling my take on it is this should be continued, because I think we need to have the site plan done. I think we're going about it the wrong way if we approve them for whatever the number of cars is without having the site plan completed with the planning board.
So what
That's my opinion.
might be the most appropriate thing then is for this plan to be presented or modification thereof, this plan to be presented to the planning board.
Yeah.
Then have the applicant come back to us to say the planning board vetted this, and this is the plan that they've approved and like and all that and recommending to us. And then we look at it again and say, okay, this was done, that was done. And I see here that this plan is showing 8 cars for sale, 13 cars total, and then we like what the planning board has done, but we might have some other conditions that we want to impose upon it. Is that,
Correct.
am I?
No, that's correct.
So I'm up to speed?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
All
my,
right, Jamie, sorry, Jamie, go ahead.
I guess I have a few comments because it's been a while, but I think at least myself, I can't speak for everyone on this board, but I imagine why one of the reasons Craig is so passionate about this is we have had a lot of complaints, and I've honestly been a little disheartened since our last meeting. That, you know, we heard from abutters and it didn't feel like the applicants were trying to do their best. They're welcome to disagree with me, but I think that was the point. I remember getting an email, I couldn't find it, but it was an enforcement officer who went down and said, we got a complaint, there's 11 cars for sale, I believe it was. And they went and they sent us an email and they said the complaint was accurate, right? They had 11 cars for sale. So I think maybe that's part of what Craig was getting at with that. I just have 2 other pieces for right now are the abutters going to get a chance to speak today if they've been online for an hour and a half, regardless of if we have to continue it, because I think they should be able to. And with that also, the business applicant should also have a chance to respond. And then one
Jamie,
last,
Please let Jamie finish.
I'm sorry.
with the process question, I know we keep saying it has to go to the planning board. Isn't that true whether or not, you know, we continue our discussion tonight, I guess?
I mean, I think it has to go to the planning board one way or the other, yes. So my take on it, and I don't know if Elizabeth agrees or not, my take on it is we continue the hearing and we let the planning board have their site review. And then it comes
Dave,
back.
I would agree with that, and I'm not trying to brush this along or not be concerned about what the applicant has to say further or what the abutters are very patiently waiting to say, but whatever gets said right now is almost going to be irrelevant because we're going to continue it until we have something better back from that's been vetted by the planning board.
That is true.
So I would say I believe that we should continue this. We should continue this hearing.
Craig, did you have something more?
yeah, I mean, as a developer, like the idea of going to the planning board to reiterate a site plan and the costs associated with that without knowing that you actually have approval for what you want to accomplish is a lot of money spent not knowing that it's going to result in anything. Like we may conceivably get an approved site plan back from the planning board and still say, yeah, no, we don't like it. Denied. And for the applicant to have to go through a non-discretionary approval before they have to come back for a discretionary approval, I think is unfair. I think we should be clear on our parameters that we want the planning board to make sure the site plan adheres to.
Doesn't our application state you should go to the planning board before you come to us, Laura?
Not
It
necessarily.
wouldn't be an inception in this case, would it? Don't you have to go to the planning board with the site plan? Doesn't it state that in the application?
For certain special permits, I believe so, but not necessarily for a
I mean,
license.
everybody would have to incur that cost.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of going back to it.
I
what
hear
the
you, Greg.
bylaws
It's a lot
say
of money.
for a minor plan review is any new development or expansion of use other than a single family or 2-family residence, which adds which would require at least 5 but fewer than 20 parking spaces, regardless of the number of parking spaces existing on the premise. So that sounds like site plan review. I don't have a problem with the ZBA providing some inputs to the planning board for their site plan, but I mean,
Correct.
I don't think it's wrong to say it really needs to go back to the planning board. I don't
and-
agree that that's a burden.
It will obviously go back to the site plan, to the planning board, because it is under the designation of that. However, from the owner and developer point of view, doing that and being subjective to their concepts and what they have to redesign or whatever per the planning board's purview, without knowing they have the license to do it once that is completed,
That's just backwards.
unfair.
I disagree.
Craig,
Tony-
to that point, I mean, that's why I asked the question, what's the task in front of us? So if the task is for us to decide that 13 cars total is okay and 8 cars for sale, I mean, I'm
I
okay
think we
to-
need
I'm o-
to designate
I'm
cars for
I'm
sale.
okay to take a vote on that. How about that?
Yeah,
I
I think we need to say how many cars for sale and how many cars pending on this site is appropriate, and then let the planning board determine how best to orient the site to accommodate that with the conditions of what we think is appropriate for car deliveries. And then they can design the site with the applicant to accommodate that. Besides, that's not great,
I-
then they never get it finally approved.
I thought the applicant was asking for 11 cars for sale. or
They're asking
something.
for 14.
Oh.
14. Sorry, Elizabeth, did you have something you wanted to offer here?
I did. I just wanted to clarify one thing first. Just because they were allowed 8 cars doesn't mean that that's required of
Yeah.
you to allow. They were only permitted to give 2 cars because of what they had in place for a special permit. So you can consider anything from 2 cars to whatever they're requesting. As far as going to site plan review before coming, I think if you have an idea of the range of cars, you can consider the adequacy of the site, because you don't want there to be a substantial detriment to the neighborhood as a result of allowing X amount of cars. And so you can definitely consider that, but I do agree that if you are going to send it to site plan review, you should have some parameters that you want them to look at. This is the amount of cars we're considering allowing. Can it safely accommodate this amount of cars, given what they're proposing? They may require angled parking spaces, or because of the way it's in and out, and for someone to back up and get around them. So those types of things might eliminate some of the parking spaces. And so, yes, you could make a decision tonight, but you don't have to allow all the parking spaces that are being proposed, and you could eliminate those and then send it to site plan review also. So that's what you have in front of you. I think it makes sense to consider the site plan in terms of adequacy of space and pedestrian safety and safety onto the roadway, because you don't want to allow too many cars and then have it be a detriment to the neighborhood in that regard. And so that's kind of how you want to be looking at it in terms of site plan review.
Okay, and thank you for that. That's my concern as well. Does it go to site plan review and they say, no way you could even fit this many cars? And now, we've approved for cars for sale beyond what they're capable of doing. So that was the bind I'm trying to avoid, which is why I thought it made more sense to say, having a more thorough review of what the traffic flow should be. And maybe, like you said, Elizabeth, do they shift them to make them angled and you have fewer spaces? So I wanted to be careful that we didn't put ourselves in a bind where we conflict with whatever they come up with in the site plan.
My question was, all this discussion, how does it square with the fact in 2015, there was the approval and the reliance upon that after so many years, and you come and say, go back to a site plan and review? It seems like,
That came from the select board, and the
Yeah.
ruling from the law, our legal advice is that was not proper to do it that way. It has to come through this body.
The
zoning
onus is
board
on
of
the
appeals.
applicant to do their due diligence and know what approvals are required. And just because you get approval from one board, like if you have a host community agreement, for example, and they give you a license to go operate a marijuana facility, that doesn't mean you don't have to obtain every other permit that's required to operate that marijuana facility.
but this was a negotiated deal with all the other issues with town council at the time,
Select board.
participating with a lawsuit too. So there's a settlement as part of a litigation. So I don't know. I think that's, I would give that a little bit of weight before we start bouncing around on this. And I think we're just trying to get this so we can, keep the neighborhood happy, continue to operate it correctly. We have a good operator in there. We get the conditions settled, the numbers settled, and the maintenance of the sites, just what we want to do.
I mean, the rest of the board is welcome to correct me on this, but I think in the first hearing, there was a general consensus that regardless of the validity of the select board's authority to grant the 8 cars, there was a consensus that the 8 cars is kind of the baseline that we're talking about. And by all means, everybody can correct me if I'm wrong, but that is what I remember, is that it's really not going back to 2, you're requesting 14. And the history of the operators and everything else isn't that they've been abiding by the 8. So is 14 really appropriate, or is some other number appropriate? In my opinion, I'm going to believe that the select board negotiated in good faith and believe that 8 is the status quo, legally, not legally, whatever, that we're really leaning from.
Agreed.
Greg, what we also talked about at the last meeting was what's the future of the law? The marine license was never granted or was lost. There's no gas to pump. They're only doing 2 oil changes a day. It's an 11,500 square foot lot. And that's going to put that into a dust bowl in my mind, or send that in the wrong direction and put them out of business.
Yeah,
That's what I think, so, I thought we did, I agree with you, Greg. I think we had some type of consensus for many reasons, and in addition to the select board allowing those 8 licenses incorrectly. It's the right thing to do in my mind. But that's where I'm at. But the other part of it is we have neighbors and things change, and it's not unreasonable. We did ask for a site plan. It's just isn't as complete as I'd hoped.
Right, and it was very late. So.
It's just what it is. It's
we could correct one aspect of it, which is that I know 14, Craig, you've said it a couple of times, but at this point we did rationalize this, and we are asking for 13. So if that helped make it more palatable, and then you at one point suggested 10 and 3, which seems reasonable to me, that there's really no reason for more than 3 cars to be sitting there that are sold. Why don't they get off the lot? So there's an incentive to move the cars along. So if we were to go back to the 10 and 3, I don't think it's a far reach. And then then you condition us to go to planning board. You folks could allow this to move forward, because we've had 19 parking spaces since 2015. And honestly, this site's 70 odd years old with a gas station, and we didn't show any new pavement here. So there's been that many parking spaces for 70 odd years. So really, this isn't anything new. We're defining it, and we're really confining it more. If you can see that ability to make that decision, that's all. 10 and 3 is what I think would make sense. Thank you.
How do the operators feel about 10 for sale and 3 clearly marked as in process or sold.
I mean, I believe I can speak for them that that's acceptable. We've discussed that. And we know that there has to be room for cars moving through that have been under agreement waiting for their final financing. And we can fit the 10 on the back fence kind of out of the way. We have a good traffic plan with the deliveries in the front. We remove that island, and then we can do our plantings and we can talk about the fencing on the back to make it. We want to block the view for them. We want to obstruct it, whether it's natural herbivores, something like that, or fencing, whatever would look better. We just didn't want big flashy for sale signs. So I agree.
Understood. So I think as Doris mentioned, we've had people waiting for a while to comment public, to join, to ask questions, which I think we should do. But I would just ask people who want to weigh in, abutters or other townspeople, if you could please just make your comments relative to what we've talked about this evening, and please not rehash everything that we talked about in the prior hearing on this or prior meeting on this. I would welcome some public comment, but again, if we could just kind of keep it to the point of what we've discussed tonight, I would appreciate it.
And
I make one quick point.
Sorry, one at a time. Sorry, one at a time. Craig?
Please remember to give your name and address.
Yes.
For the
Okay.
record.
Go ahead,
And,
Mr. McCall.
and just one quick point from the operator is that the correspondence, and I just want to reiterate that the correspondence and the videotape and everything we saw was before July 4th. It was in a week or 10-day period after the hearing. And I think it shows that the complaints didn't continue unless they only felt that it had to be one, but we really are working at this in the education. That's all.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So do we have somebody? I imagine we do.
Yeah. I have Ms. Falcone.
Okay. If you could just, again, please, before you speak, just identify yourself and address.
Nancy Falcone, 257 Corderville Road. The vehicles, I don't know how you're going to get 10 against that fence. There's 8 there now, and there doesn't seem to be room to fit 10, but that's my opinion. I don't know how you're going to manage the dumpster. I didn't see that on your drawing. And then my other concern, I snapped a screenshot of that and looked in. The hours of operation, you've managed to put in there for Sundays by appointment. That was not part of the license that the Board of Selectmen signed. And I am totally against by appointment only on Sundays. There is no way to regulate that. They can say they have an appointment for every hour from 9 to 6 p.m. There's no way to regulate that, and I'm against it. You know, good luck with the site plan the way you have it, because I just, for the life of me, living across the street from this practically my entire life, or on Oregon Road and driving by both directions my entire life, I don't see how this is feasible. But thank you for hearing me.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I have one more.
Hi, I am Flavia Mondvitz. Did she ask you yet? Can I speak?
What's your address?
Flavia Mondvitz at 202 Woodland Road. I'm right behind the gas station, whatever you want to call it. And I would accept 8 cars for sale, and that's it. More than that, it's too many cars. And I want to comment on something like when they park the cars right on the front of the garage where the pumps are, and you stop at the stop sign and try to make a right turn or left turn to go on 85. When the cars are parked there, you cannot see who's coming down 85. And I stayed all day behind my picture window, and I hear a lot of car brakes. The cars, they stop right on the middle of 85 because sometimes it's a truck parked there or it's a car parked in the front. They can't see. It blinds somebody who's coming down 85, and there hasn't been an accident yet, but I'm waiting for it.
I'm sorry, is that with a truck in the lot or outside the lot?
The people that they work there, whoever they are, they park their vehicles right where the pumps used to be, right near the island. The one on the inside of the island, the one on the outside the island. So when you stop at the stop sign to take a left turn at 85, it blocks the view. It happens to me many times. Sometimes I wanted to go, but then all of a sudden it's a car, because you can't. It blinds you for a short period where you don't know who's there. They don't should park there all day long in the cars, or half a day. No, every time I go out of here, my house, it's something parked over there.
Okay, all right.
If that spot is free for delivery, where I never saw truck deliver in the front there, it should be empty all the time. Nobody should park over there, because it's not a parking space.
All right, thank you.
Okay. And then I have my neighbor here next door. She doesn't know our internet, so she's over here to speak too.
Hi,
Say your name.
my name's Linda Sloan. I live at 200 Woodland Road.
Okay,
And I just want to say, since our last meeting that you had told them 8 cars only, they still never abided by what they were told at the last meeting. And also the trucks that deliver, I've only seen one time a truck delivered correctly in front of the pumps. In July 27th, they had 3 deliveries, and the other trucks delivered coming across the drive, pulling in and heading out towards Woodland Road. They pulled directly into the parking lot to deliver, and cars were coming off the other end, and traffic jammed on 85. So I feel that if you give them 13 cars, 10 and 3, that's going to bring 20 cars, because they're just not going to abide by. You gave them 8 and they never abide by the 8. There's 11. I think there's 11 cars over there tonight. Thank you.
Oh, it should say that you agree with what he says. Right.
okay, thank you.
I will agree that I routinely see a car parked between the concrete island that used to be the gas pumps and the office area, which I'm assuming is one of the owners or employees. Pretty much every time I drive by there's a car there.
Which
I would think so. I'm sorry. I would think so. And they know to regulate, and they move that when the deliveries come, because they plan it. There's a whole new system in operation in the last few weeks on that. But
yeah, no, John, I would say that parking it there and in general is probably in violation of the concept and the spirit of what we're talking about.
So I think they can hear you, and I'll instruct them.
It there to begin with is part of the problem.
Okay.
Do we have anybody else, Laura?
No.
Okay.
So as I said, we do need to do the striping. The traffic management plan, I literally typed this today. So the spirit of it has existed, for a few hours. But implementation is in your decision. So if you're inclined to do it,
Okay.
I think you can put all of the muscle into this you'd like. So thank you.
All right, Jamie?
I just have a quick question. I'd read this in one of the comments. I think it was Mrs. Sloan who just spoke. But is there a car detailing business out of this location too? I think it was an accusation. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know.
No, anything detailing, body work, or heavy engine work, that's all sent out. They don't do any of that there. I mean, they might vacuum a car because someone's coming to pick it up, but no detailing with intense washing or whatever that entails, shampooing and stuff like that.
Okay.
Okay.
David, I have another hand up. It's Ms. Falcone, if you're still allowing public comment.
Yes, we have not closed the public hearing.
Hi, Nancy Falcone, 257 Corderville Road. I beg to differ with the attorney there. when you go back and look at the YouTube video of the meeting that these tenants held with the Board of Selectmen, when they got their license signed, they actually said they were the ones doing the car detailing. That was their primary business, and that they wanted to sell a few vehicles on the side. So how this has all gotten twisted, I don't know. The other thing is they do have someone else running a business. He details the cars. He does whatever car repairs. He's not an employee. And if he is, let's see his payroll record. He is not. They are running a separate business out of there. So there's two different things going on here, and you have been made aware of this.
Okay.
Go back and look at the first video from the meeting from the Board of Selectmen on February 2nd, 2022. Like I said,
I didn't attend that, so I don't, I
Mhm.
wasn't there. I didn't
No.
represent this operator, so I don't.
as I have said in my other emails, the town has made mistakes, and it's about time that the town stops and reviews everything, and let's not keep making mistakes as we go forward.
I agree, and that was no, I don't see any reason why that couldn't be a condition, but Laura, did you want to respond here?
You talking to me or to Lara?
No, I'm sorry, I'm talking to you, the owner side.
Yes. So if any neighbors see that the vehicles that are being cleaned, are being vacuumed, are being washed, are being polished, are the vehicles that are being sold. They're being moved from one end, being washed to be delivered. So yes, the person who is helping us, he is washing our vehicles for us to deliver, because as we all know, when a vehicle comes from auction, it's a mess. It's not a vehicle that we can deliver in that sense. So, and you guys have been aware that we do have somebody that cleans, vacuums, polish our vehicles once they're sold. That has been mentioned since day one, when we obtained the license.
Okay.
But it's not a detailing business. They don't attract people, just come in to wash cars, drop them off for the day. And come out.
Right.
It's an ancillary preparation to selling a business. It's like marinating meat before you can cook it.
Yeah,
in the
and
restaurant.
again, I would say that's something we could probably condition pretty easily, that we any only cleaning of vehicles allowed on the site would be those that are being prepared for sale. Okay, all right, well, is there anybody else who's looking to comment or no? We've been at this for a while now, so I don't know if the board members have anything else they want to add here.
I have like one other thing to add is it seems maybe the biggest, I guess, problem or concern here is what is allowed or what we say is allowed, and what happens and what gets enforced seems to be a problem. And I'm not sure how this actually gets properly monitored and enforced. And I know, on other type matters, we, I don't know, we say something needs to be, X feet from the road and we approve it. And if it's closer, well, then the building inspector is going to note that and put a cease and desist on the project or on the building. So I'm not sure, how to properly, and I think that's the problem, is somehow or another, this does need to be monitored and enforced.
Right.
So if there is something egregiously different from what is being allowed, then it would need to be it would need a cease and desist. I guess.
Right. Agreed.
I'm not too sure what authority would monitor and determine that. Would that be the building inspector? Would that be?
It would be. I mean, I did speak the case about this a little bit, and anything that's a safety issue, right? Anything that happens on 85, that's the police, right? Those are safety officers that have to deal with that. But if they're, say we approve them for the sale of 8 cars with a maximum of, 12 cars on the lot, just arbitrarily. And we find that they've got 15 cars on the lot. That is an enforcement action by the building commissioner.
I mean, and I think that's what needs to be like driven home here is that because it seems to be what the complaints of the neighbors are and what even like what Craig, what your observations are and what we're contemplating allowing seems to not, we're not like arguing over 1 or 2 cars once in a blue moon. We're talking about a significant difference in things. And that I guess would need to be, I guess, strictly enforced. I don't know if that's obviously that's a condition, but that, I mean, that needs to be monitored and enforced. It's a little bit of apples and oranges, but a lot of the stuff that we went through with the Ken's location there on Route 9, and one of the big concerns is the tractor trailers going into Ken's. They can't make a left at the lights there because that's not the way the intersection lines up. So what's supposed to take place is down to 85, Cloverleaf around and come back on Route 9. What happens quite often is you take that left turn where
Red Barn.
at Red Barn, it's not Red Barn anymore, but yeah, that Red Barn. And it blocks the entire westbound side of Route 9. And I have the same thing. I go up and down Route 9 all the time. I'm on the ZBA here making decisions to allow this, and I'm sitting there for 5-10 minutes because some truck, it's been brought up, I'm sorry, won't happen again, and it happens again. I don't see it as frequently. Eventually, I think the message has gotten through. I do think Ken's has made an effort to tell their drivers, don't do that because we're trying to get other things approved here. Yeah. So I know but my point to that is that if we're being asked to say yay to an increase in cars or an increase in things for sale, it better be adhered to. It's going to be monitored. And again, it's not like, oh, we're trying to trip you up because we found an extra car there and you're in trouble. I mean, this sounds to me, it sounds like the neighbors' complaints are based on things that are significantly different than what is contemplated or what's allowable.
Okay. All right, Craig, I don't know, did you have something you wanted to say here?
No, I'm actually just asking if Elizabeth has a statement or a concept of how we clearly define how this is enforced and the repercussions of non-compliance.
So I agree with what was said earlier. When you issue a decision, it has to be enforced by the zoning enforcement officer, and they can issue a cease and desist, and that would be the process for it.
Okay, so I think to this date, the building inspector has not been feeling empowered to issue that cease and desist given the pending application, but making it clear to Cody Burlingame and the ongoing enforcement officers that is the immediate course of action if there is a violation.
Right.
Is important to make sure that is noted here.
So what you could do is provide a copy of the decision to the zoning enforcement officer after it's rendered and make sure that they're aware of all the conditions.
Would a clearly defined course of action of a violation in the decision be appropriate or necessary?
No, because it's laid out by the statute, so.
It's fair. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I guess I'm still struggling a little bit with, I did think that we would continue it. Craig, yeah, you're saying you don't think that's the right thing to do. And I think Elizabeth's saying we can get guidance. I mean, my take now, I don't know if we're ready to close the public hearing, but my take would be that if we feel like we need to do that, that clearly we state something that says it's pending site plan review, approved site plan review by the planning board. And in that case, I would argue that we would make it for a smaller amount of cars, because I am concerned that the site plan review is going to cut down the number of cars available.
Yeah, I mean, my personal feeling on this is that looking at the site plan as it exists now, I would be comfortable giving guidance for 10 cars for sale, 3 cars in transition, for a total of 13 cars, either for sale and in transition. So they can have 9 and 4, they can have 7 and 5, or 7 and 6, or whatever the number is, but no more than 13 cars for sale and in transition, with no more than 10 for sale at any given time, would be the appropriate guidance for us to, again, in my opinion, give direction for site plan approval to ensure that proper screening, removal of the former gas station area, ingress, egress, and plans of delivery vehicles, et cetera, that is more appropriate for site plan approval, which we can delineate our preferences and ask them to identify, look at for sure. But I think that's my opinion as an appropriate stance on this site as drawn.
Okay. All right.
Craig,
I need to hear from other board members.
I'd be okay with Craig's opinion.
Jamie?
I actually think I would do fewer cars. I don't know the exact number. I mean, I think I'm definitely okay with 8 for sale, as we kind of discussed, and a couple in transition. But I mean, I pass by that site all the time. It's not like there's a ton of space as is, with what they have now. So I would be worried to have 13 cars total for the business, plus parking for customers and the business owners, and getting the deliveries in there. I think it's going to be tight.
Doris?
But let me ask, can I ask a question, Jamie, to what you're saying? If there's 13 cars there and that's all you're allowed, what would be delivered? I'm not questioning you. I'm just saying the logic here is if there's no more than 13 cars allowed on the lot, that doesn't mean 13 cars, and you bring in a flatbed with 6 more.
13 cars on the lot, or 13 cars for sale? Because there's also the owner's cars and customers' cars.
No, so you have the owner's parking, you have customer parking, and then you have 13 vehicles that are whatever combination that is total for sale, or in transition.
Transition.
Yeah.
So if you're maxed out with the 13 on the lot, then there shouldn't be a flatbed dropping off 6 more cars, because that would be in excess of 13 then, whether they're pre-sold or whatever. So,
okay, point made. Doris?
Yeah, I've always had a difficulty of delineating what we can't get the signage right. People are taking pictures. So I'm not really much for, I could go up as high as the 13, and in honesty, it wouldn't make a difference to me if they're transition or sale. 13's 13, and it would eliminate a lot of confusion about that. Okay, so 13's 13, whether you're selling 13 cars, even if they're in transit. In my mind, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but we have limited resources on enforcement. I have a slight lean to less, but I'm going to be agreeable to at a minimum 8. And then because the transitional existing problem, and that's what's getting me up to a higher number, 12, 13, and it could still end up in site plan, because that's what's there now. And you can't fit much more, and you can't bring another hauler in. So it should be pretty obvious if you're just counting the 13, unless they're selling the ones on the other side. It's a very, I had a business that lived next to a business of this type, and I've seen them go in double deckers. So I really do see what the neighbors are concerned about here. Just keep putting them in. But if we had enforcement,
Right, yeah, well,
So we have to be very clear on that.
Yeah, there needs
Because
to
that's
be
what we've got
enforcement.
now. We've got a business that's operating at 13, Greg. It's just
Well,
whether,
they're not allowed to operate at 13 at the moment.
well, you
allowed
know,
to-
effectively, they're
8.
definitely operating at 8, and they
Yeah,
had stated they can have 3 to 5 cars in transition with that. So they're operating. I mean, it's a
so,
semantic, but they've got 13 on that
Okay.
lot. I'm gonna lean with the neighbors heavily with that. It's at 11 or 13 is really happening.
right.
We got
Well,
neighbors.
I kind of side a little bit with Jamie. Like, I think, I'm not sure I want to go to 13. I just because of what might come out of site plan review, I would say I'd be happy with 12. And it's like you said, it's a combination of what's for sale and what's in transition. So the other, and I don't know that we need, I also, just a matter of, how we operate here. Do we need to continue to keep the meeting public, or are we ready to close the public part of the hearing? Do we need to hear more from the owners or Mr. Bemis?
I'd be okay to close this.
I think someone's
Oh.
hand is raised. I don't know
So
if it's
my,
old.
my concern closing it is if we're not making a formal decision and vote here, and we're giving parameters to the planning board for site plan review and then analyzing it coming back, then technically we're not actually allowed to hear from the applicant again if we close public hearing. So,
well, I mean, I mean, again, I kind of came in with, let's continue the public, continue the hearing pending site plan review, but so I don't know, Elizabeth, did you have something to offer here?
So if the purpose of continuing the hearing is to receive additional information, you want to keep it open.
Yeah.
Well, Craig, I guess to clarify what you're saying, what I meant is I'm okay with closing this and taking a vote.
oh, okay, yeah, I am as well. I think, I think this idea of where these 8, 10, 12, 13 spaces are can be delineated in our vote. I think the idea of these 3 spaces that quote unquote are for employees, I think we can delineate as never to be holding a for sale or transition car, which they currently are being used for now. So I honestly feel comfortable with a vote that says up to a maximum of 10 cars for sale, 13 cars total for sale and in transition to be parked as delineated on the site plan as 13 spaces auto for sale. And in no other place on the site plan, I think covers the concerns that most of us seem to be having.
I'm sorry. I don't think I would be that specific, because the concern that was raised earlier would probably take place, or if you're delineating where they can park on the site plan, then you're limiting site plan review, because if
my concern is site plan may say I want a bigger buffer on the road and we lose 2 spaces. So it's up to that number pending site plan review. Maybe they delineate space that's no longer a space.
Right. I think the language we would have to use is pending site plan review. Right.
Yeah.
We give a maximum. They have the right to cut it back.
Yes.
I'm okay with Craig's thoughts and comments there.
Okay. I need to hear from Jamie and Doris then.
Yeah, I'd be interested in Elizabeth's view on how to word that for our vote.
I want to feel out what Jamie and how they, if they're ready to take a vote as well.
So
Go ahead.
go ahead,
Doris.
Jamie, please.
Oh, I was gonna say, I'm very concerned about that number 13. I think when we came in here, they had 8 and they told us typically they have 3 in transition, so that's 11. And the butters are already, we're very concerned about that and the amount of space available. And then now an additional 3 potential on top of that. I mean, I would feel better with 11 or 12 total for in transition and for sale.
Doris?
I'm okay by going down a space. I'm just trying to get to a number that I think they're currently operating at. To,
Okay.
that's why I think they're operating. It's just the only reasoning, but if that would lead to a vote and consensus. And the other piece is that when we do these conditions besides site plan review, that we put in those few recommendations to address the fencing versus the plantings and the removal of the island. And then Liz's advice on how we phrase that we're
Right.
not delineating those spots.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
But that would be the most
So-
logical place to put them. So,
I have one
So do you
question,
think,
yes, if I can.
Go ahead, Craig.
Given the existing square footage of the office storage and existing bays, what's the required parking excluding a handicap spot based on that square footage?
Is that a question for Peter?
Remus.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't do a square footage calculation on retail, but like I said, we did the 3 parking spaces for employees because that was more than enough for this operation that's being proposed here.
Yeah.
So,
And
I put them on the south because I don't want them to be permanent parking spaces. I didn't want the cars for sale to be there, Craig. Like you.
No, totally get that. This is to my point for Jamie and Doris of, I think the handicap spot is the handicap spot, and that's in and of itself and kind of
Agreed.
out there.
Mhm.
I think it's reasonable to assume that there could be 3 customers there. And maybe none of them are able to park in a handicap spot. So maybe 12 is the right number. You know, it's 12 spaces total, a combination of for sale and in transition clearly marked. And 3 spaces for customers, a handicap spot, and 3 spaces for employees. That, to James' kind of concern, I think is totally reasonable. Because a handicap spot is just, it's there. And you have to be eligible to use it.
Okay. You live with that, Paul, as well?
sure, yes.
Okay. Because the first thing for me to wrestle with is, do we continue it or do we take a vote tonight? And there seems to be an appetite to take a vote if we can put in conditions and we can agree on a number.
Not to keep being anxious, but yeah, I'd say we close the public hearing and move to a vote.
I'd say that's our preference as well, because to go to planning board as part of this review process makes no sense. Craig's right on spot for that. We couldn't do that. So
Okay.
we need your direction. Thank you.
All right.
So, David, if I may, could I make a motion to close the public hearing?
You may.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion to close has been seconded. All in favor, respond with aye. Those against, nay. Paul?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
Doris?
aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
And Williams, aye. We'll close the public part of the hearing. And I think, I don't know if you want to sort of work out what the phrasing of the conditions here, Craig, with Elizabeth, or if she's got any advice.
I think we've kind of vetted it. Craig, I would almost like for you to make the motion, because I think you're probably going to say it the best or the most eloquently.
So Elizabeth, what I'm thinking is a motion that approves a certain number of parking spaces available for a combination of for sale and in transition cars, with subject to site plan approval with specific consideration of fencing and screening along Woodland Road, the removal of the existing concrete island, limitations on ingress and egress of delivery vehicles, hours of operations, Trying to think if there's anything else that we discussed.
You know that, Craig, I think that I took kind of some bullet points down. I think that hits them all.
What
I
what
think one
about
last-
the,
Any idling of delivery vehicles on Woodland Road so that managing
Yeah.
does not allow
Yeah.
for delivery vehicles to idle on Woodland Road.
Is it
I
better
would
to say
also,
traffic flow? Idling traffic flow?
I
That's back to
will
ingress.
do it.
The-
Jamie, you had something?
I think that we discussed this, but that the employees have to park in the employee spots and not in front of the building.
Yeah, no,
Designated spots.
Designated spots.
and no parking of transition vehicles in the spaces on the site plan designated as employee parking.
Yep, that sounds good.
Elizabeth, how does that sound?
Elizabeth?
Um,
Oh, there you go.
if it's generally the spots to be designated as employee parking, subject to site plan review.
Right.
Yeah, I think the idea is that we're giving license to a certain number of parking spaces. The rest is subject to site plan review with specific attention to
Yeah.
these.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that
So-
works. Also, you might want to specify that they don't have to come back if the site plan changes unless it is changing the number of parking spaces, like greater than.
Okay,
Greater than the number that we've allowed.
greater than whatever we agree on.
Okay,
So Craig, just to clarify, so that would be 12, whether sale or in transition, 1 handicap, 3 customer, 3 employee, for a total of 19 cars.
yes.
Okay.
Do we know if there's parking requirements for this specific use?
I asked that of Mr. Bemis, and my guess, looking at the size of the building, 7 spaces, three customer, 3 employee, and a handicap is
That's
more
not
than
covered.
just off
What-
eyeball.
What about the discussing the cease and desist if the standards are not met?
I think Elizabeth already said that that's part of our code anyway.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
make sure it's
Yeah,
very to what the rules are from this point forward, and no question of
I think if we do that, if we have conditions that are very clearly stated and, you know, Case has them, he's empowered to enforce it. I think
Yeah.
one of the problems now is it's based on approval of two cars for sale 20 years ago, or whatever it was. Okay.
Okay,
So are you ready, Craig?
I hope so.
Good luck.
We're rooting for you.
Thank you. I move that we approve oh my God, is this, I've even lost.
Special
Is it
permit.
a special permit? Is this a variance? What
No,
is
it's a
this?
special, I think it's a special permit.
Elizabeth, special permit?
That was my understanding.
Thank you.
Dear Lord.
Approve a special permit allowing for a total of 12 cars for sale and in transition
Combined.
combined.
I'm sorry, how many, what was your number?
12
Okay.
for sale and in transition combined, so no more than 12 cars on the site per the site plan dated
No.
Today.
2020. Subject to site plan approval by the planning board with special consideration given to fencing and screening along Woodland Road, the removal of the concrete island along Corderville Road that used to accommodate gas pumps, the restriction of 3 spaces towards the southern corner of the lot for employee parking only.
Ingress and egress.
Ingress and egress of delivery vehicles from the south along Corderville Road, exiting to the north along Corderville Road only. Hours of operations of the sales office.
Do you want to say something about Sunday?
That's hours of operations. They can make their appropriate determination on hours of operations, from my opinion. Anything else? Did I miss anything?
Do we have the no idling vehicles?
What's that?
Did you say no idling vehicles?
No idling vehicles, no idling delivery vehicles along Woodland Road. Clear demarcation of for sale and in process / sold cars. I think that's it.
So again, I checked off my bullet points. I think you got it all. So if that was a motion, I'll make a second.
That was a motion.
That
Thank
was
you.
a motion. Okay, thank you for that. All right, motion has been made and seconded.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Elizabeth, I know you asked this point and I forgot to mention it prior to Paul seconding. So how do we do this?
I can
You
withdraw.
can make it and augment it, and then I can second that.
I request to augment that no further approval by this board is necessary unless the planning board approves a greater number than 12 parking spaces for sale and in transition cars.
okay. Paul,
You closed the hearing, by the way.
We did.
Yeah,
We did.
The hearing's closed. Yeah.
we did.
Right.
Paul, would
So
you?
I
Can
will
you second
now-
it again?
I will second the amended proposal.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna ask for approval of the motion and the augmented one with Paul's second. Members respond in favor with aye, against with nay. Doris,
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and Williams is aye as well. Okay. Congratulations and thank you. Good luck with the site plan.
Appreciate the time, everybody, in the consideration, and I want you to know that with the client and the operator in attendance that they'll understand, and I'll make sure I review that. A lot was said and they'll take it seriously, as they should. Thank you.
Yeah, I think they should. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
thank you.
will.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Good night.
Night, everyone.
I think that means,
Would it, by any
Or-
chance, would it be my time to shine now, or do we have other things to discuss?
No, we have to approve minutes, but who is written? And Peter Bemis, you should leave.
Hang on.
I'm not sure who you are.
Well, you can listen still, though. Because they're
Yeah,
very fascinating minutes.
There we go.
so yeah, I think the next item we had on the agenda was approval of minutes, correct? Now, I'm just gonna say for everyone's clarification, I actually looked at them pretty closely. Laura had a heck of a job to do. There was so much to cover. I think she did really well with it. I found a couple stray things in there, and I think she cleaned them up. I've got a lot of confidence that she captures it pretty accurately. I'm just gonna throw that out there for everybody.
You caught a couple of my stray notes that I took. Yeah,
You're gonna have your job cut out for you after this one too.
Yeah.
certainly do.
Oh, yeah.
I'm already on page 10, so you guys are doing great.
So, does anybody have any concerns with the minutes as written for the previous meeting?
I
We're
do not.
I'm
implement
sorry.
version that we saw.
No, the version you have is unedited. So if you want, hold on one second.
I'm happy to make a motion to approve the minutes subject to Chairman Williams's recommendations to the administrator.
Okay,
I'll
I'll
second
second
that.
it.
with a second. Okay. That was a close tie for who got the second, Doris or Paul. Motion.
Oh, go to
approve the
Doris.
minutes as-
Thanks, Paul.
No problem.
As edited by the chairman has been made and seconded. All in favor, respond with aye. Against, nay. Paul?
Aye.
Doris?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
And Williams is aye. Okay, we do have one last order of business, and maybe tonight's meeting has affected it, but we are supposed to actually choose a chairman and a clerk for the ZBA. So unfortunately, Mike Robbins isn't here for me to browbeat him into him becoming the chairman. I offer, as I did the last time, if somebody else wants to do it, I will not be offended, but I am willing to do it. So
I nominate Dave to be chair.
Second.
Aye, sir.
oh, dear God. Okay.
Congratulations, Dave.
All right. Motion to nominate Mr. Williams as the chairman has been made and seconded. All in favor, respond with aye. Paul?
Super aye.
Doris?
Whew. Aye.
Yawns count. Yep. Craig?
Yep.
Jamie?
Aye.
And Williams? Aye. Okay, and we need a clerk. I would nominate Craig because I think he does a very good job.
Second.
I'm gonna second it, third it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Motion
Bad one lately.
has been made and seconded to make Mr. Craig the
Oh,
clerk.
yeah.
Yeah, it's getting late.
Yeah.
For me,
All
yeah,
in
definitely.
favor of Mr. Nicholson as the clerk, respond with aye. Paul?
A clear eye.
Clear eye. Doris?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Craig?
I abstain.
Abstain. Okay, it's official. And Williams, aye. I think it's.
I can't
good
vote for crying out loud. That's just statistical.
Oh,
Well,
I
okay.
can't stop yawning. I'm so
I
sorry.
suppose I
Yeah.
should have
See if
abstained
Laura
myself.
captures that in the minutes,
There you go.
All right.
as well as the proper spelling of freaking from earlier also.
17 times.
All right.
That's all the business we have right now.
Is it?
Okay,
Is it,
here we go.
David?
Oh shit.
I'd like
What else?
like
Do
to
we have
make
any
a motion to
applications
adjourn.
coming?
Oh, I'm sorry. Laura's right.
Darn.
We did say we were gonna talk about
I can make it
Amending-
super brief.
Oh,
Please do.
it's the what is it? It's the limit on. Oh, God.
Okay.
You
You
know
want me
what it
to,
is.
okay, so super quickly. According to Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 9, we're supposed to have within our bylaws an expiration date for special permits. We currently do not, with the exception of adult uses and medical marijuana. So we need to amend the bylaws. So this is me telling you, get ready for town meeting. We can talk about it more at a different meeting. I've already spoken to Karina and Jay Tellerman briefly about it because this does impact the planning board as well. But Karina asked if the ZBA would be willing to sponsor the warrant article for town meeting to do that.
Yeah, Craig, what was you have a thought on that? I mean,
I don't think as the enforcers of the zoning bylaw, we should be the ones dictating the zoning bylaw, is my opinion.
Okay, that's fair. My take is I don't really have I think we're kind of taking existing language and just modifying it for the special.
I don't have an
permit.
issue with the concept of it. I just don't think as the enforcers, we should be telling what we're going to enforce.
Okay.
That is the purview of the zoning bylaw is.
It is the purview of the planning board. You're right about that.
So if there's a change to the zoning bylaws, it should come from the planning board. And we should be the ones that agree with the concept or not, but we're going to be there to uphold it and enforce it. So we're not the legislatures and the jury. We're the jury.
Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll take the action. I'll give Karina a call and say, why is it that you want the ZBA to do this? And why wouldn't you just do it? Because you guys own the zoning code, really, and they do.
Yeah.
So it's a fair point.
That's my only concern. I mean, clearly there needs to be a time limit on it. Totally agree with it. Whatever it is, whatever. It's our job to enforce it, not dictate it.
All right. I'll follow up with Karina.
Okay,
I
so,
agree, I agree with Craig there.
okay. So in the meantime, when I'm writing special permit decisions, such as the two tonight, Jay had said that we can include kind of like a notation at the end that says the special permit will expire after X amount of time. Is there a time frame that you want me to include in there? Just for reference, planning board does 2 years.
I was gonna take a guess at 2 years.
If it says 2 years, I think we're totally comfortable with 2 years.
Yeah.
My view.
Yeah, let's go with 2 years.
You
Not
got it.
fusion in different timeframes based on who issues it.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's quite typical in my experience too.
Okay.
Okay. Then one more thing.
I thought we had one more.
2 more things.
Two more. Okay.
I just wanted to bring up the possibility and get a feel for what you guys think on switching to electronic signatures. Since so much of what we do is remote, all of our meetings are remote, it would just be for signatures from the board. So, when David signs a decision, if you guys would want to do that electronically, there is a process that we have to go through, but
I'm for it. I'm
Yeah,
not against it.
I've had to do that at work. They have ways for you to do that through like Adobe PDF, and I think it's perfectly acceptable. I'm not against it.
I'm for it too. I know there are certain things that have to be signed in ink, certain plans and whatnot. If that's ever in front of us where we have to sign it that way, then obviously I would expect that to be excluded.
Yeah, so what we would have to do if you wanted to adopt it is we would have to take a vote and then draft up a certificate of vote that kind of explains that you guys are willing to accept the provisions of MGL Chapter 110G, which is all electronic records and signatures. What you would put in that also is that you would say that the electronic signature and a wet ink signature, you could use both and they would both carry the same legal weight. So that would be included in that certificate of vote. We file it with the town clerk. We record a certified copy of that with the registry of deeds. And then any document that's electronically signed, we just have to put like a little notation on it. So there's a little bit of an administrative process to do it, but we don't have to do it tonight. I just wanted to see if you guys would be on board for that.
And where are we relative to other boards in that requirement or that option?
We would be the second one to do it.
Okay.
Conservation does it right now. So
Okay.
that's where I got all that information from, was from the conservation agent, because they did it, I want to say last year or 2 years ago during COVID, they did it.
Good not to be the guinea pig.
Totally.
Yeah.
With the appropriate, things. So
Maybe next meeting if we have time.
Yeah, if we have a little more time.
Clara, that we'll know exactly what administrative steps we have to do to enact it.
Say that again.
I trust that you know what you actually have to give to us to have it be valid.
I do. I had it ready for tonight, but I don't want to do it tonight because it's very late. So I'll have it prepped and ready for you guys for the next meeting, which is currently scheduled for September 20th, if that still works for everybody.
Sure.
I think it's fine.
It
Okay.
should be fine unless my flight delays.
Okay.
But I'll know that.
Ever in?
Pardon?
Are you ever actually in town?
I'm in town now. See?
Oh.
She's so upset about our sidewalk, she's leaving.
That's it, yeah. I'm going to Portugal. I'm going to Portugal.
That's a rough life, Doris.
Where in Portugal?
We're flying to Lisbon, maybe in Porto, and I'm going with my daughter and friends, another girlfriend.
Oh, that's where We're
Nice.
going in October.
I'll let you know how it goes next meeting.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, no, 20th works for me.
Okay.
Do we
Yeah,
have
I
any
think 20th will be fine.
applications, Laura?
We have one application. It's a special permit for more than 3 garage bays. So should be relatively straightforward. You never know. And then Doris, I know you wanted to, we talked about it last meeting, putting on the accessory apartment discussion, because you have been working on something with that, right?
Yeah, there's a small group of us working on very slowly, on possibly putting something up for town warrant in March.
So that's it.
Is that
That's
it? Okay.
That's
good.
it. I promise that's it.
I'll just go through
right.
what we're doing, that's all, and we'll see how it
Okay.
goes. Okay.
Paul,
Yes. Now it's my time. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
second that.
Wonderful meeting.
All right, motion to adjourn has been made and seconded. All in favor, respond with aye. Paul?
Aye.
Doris?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Thank you, everybody. That was long.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
That was
Thank
long.
you.
I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
I get up at 5 every day.
I
I'm
haven't had
exhausted.
dinner yet. I'm starving.
Oh, my goodness.
I just
Rookie-
like
Made-
so
rookie
made it
mistake
tired.
through,
not
Jamie.
having dinner first.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye, guys.